All right. Next up, we've got Terrence Davis from Beaumont USD in California. Terrence.
So before I get started really quick, where's Chris Smeaton? Chris Smeaton, you're an animal on Twitter. This guy is a Twitter animal. I want to talk to you after, find out how you do that. Two things. Andy yesterday talked about, really quick before they get the slides up, talked about expense and investment. I didn't know where he was going with it. Then he switched it up, and I was like, that was good. I made a good choice last night, so that's why I feel good. So that's good. And then the other one, when you do the thought exchange coming up, I want you to think about not a safe space. Because how do I know it's a safe space for you? We don't know if it's a safe space. It is a brave space. So make sure you're brave in your answers. That way we can have real conversations and deep conversations. So, Beaumont Unified School District. We are located in Southern California, and our theme really is about shared commitment. How do we share the work? We can't do it alone. It's about being shared. So I start with students, because that's what we're all here for. Everything we do, the billions of dollars, trillions of dollars we spend, it's about our kids. And so I start there all the time. And so this story, I paid attention and I followed directions for this, and that's pretty rare because I typically don't follow directions. So this really is about a story about our leadership team. We're approaching about 70 members of the team. There are over 1,000 employees in Beaumont that serve 10,640 students. And I thought we just have this great team, good people. We have team building activities every year. One of this lady right here is one of our board members. And we just bring everyone in and have a really good time, focus on what we do for kids. And then last year, and I'll just say this is not a plug, this is a story, but more importantly, it's my truth. And so I'll say to you that Thought Exchange, we started in the beginning of last year. And so I started to play with it a little bit. I'm like, okay, Heidi, where's Heidi? She came, was great, spent a lot of time with her, let's try it out. And so I played with it. We would have leadership meetings, and so I threw out a thought exchange to our leadership team. And so these themes emerged, and this theme came up. And the thing that came up was about trust. And it was like, there's no trust. And I'm like, are you kidding? What do you mean there's no trust? I'm thinking we have high trust. I've been in the district, I'm starting my 8th year in the district. Starting my 4th year as superintendent. I don't know how that's happened, but that's what it is. So how do we not have trust? And I stopped and thought about that. And I thought about it takes time to build trust. I thought I was walking over as assistant superintendent of human resources and going into the superintendency, and it was just going to be all good. Oh, everything's just fine. No, it was like I was starting over because there was a lot of fear. We talk about fear. There was a lot of fear about what is he going to do? How is this going to work? And the other thing I thought about was, that's crazy. There's all this love we're trying to build and have. All this love, but there's no trust. And so with that, and the reason I was a little upset about that is I always start with this quote. I love this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. Whenever I do presentations, especially to an angry mob of people, if it's parents, whoever it is, I start with this. Because the perspective that we have is different. I could be talking about one thing here. If there's 60 or 70 of us in here, all of us are going to have a different perspective about it because it's based upon our own experiences. It's really important. So I'm like, how do we not have trust? So last year we were doing this book study. So we do a book study every year. And there were some themes that emerged from this book. This book, you have to read it. Do it with your team. Have your principals read it. And the big themes that emerged was know your team. You've got to know the people you work with. You have to know them, and they have to know you know them. 2, grow your team. Build that capacity. Empower them. Let them fail. It's okay. We're not first responders. We're not. No one's going to die. Things happen. But we're there to support and move forward. Take care of your team. And the biggest thing, take care of your team, know their families, all of that. But the biggest thing for me is really about who's your client. And so we had an activity. And it really changed the tone of this trust thing. It was about who your client is. So we had people thinking that, and I'll use this is tape, so I hope she doesn't ever watch this, but our transportation driver said, the students are my client. And after they read this passage, no, the client are the bus drivers. The clients of the teachers are the students. The client of the site administrators are the teachers. The clients of anyone in the office that works at the central office is not the students. Yes, students in mind, but it's the sites. They do the work. They get to the classroom. So I just want to show you this really fast. Starts as a square, ends as a circle. We're arguing about this is what it is, but if you turn over here, it's different. If you look at it from this perspective, it's different. That's life, folks, and we got to understand that when we're dealing with that. So the last thing, if we can get to the last slide, is our theme for this year is Mind and Vote. And what that is, in essence, is one team, one mission, a shared commitment. Someone talked about superintendency, women in superintendency, and diversity. Look at this, diversity. This is about, in order to be able to do something, you have to do it collectively. I can't do it alone. Thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Right on. Thanks so much, Terrence. Certainly lots of sentiment around the excellence of your presentation, so thank you for that, first of all. I'm just going to dive into the all thoughts. Okay, cool. Great. How do you move emotional/angry people towards a focus on what's best for students and the district? Let's just camp out here for a second, because I think the question really relates to all the different issues that you've presented, and certainly the emotional response to safety and security, or to, you know, even just programming and those kinds of things. So please, I'll open it up and go ahead and drill in.
Just a quick aside. The most challenging job I ever had was a special education director in a district that was extremely entitled, extremely high autism population. We had all kinds of legal cases, just crazy. And when I would go into IEPs and sit with parents, and we're talking about parents who've dealt with their student not being what they thought they were all of their life and not succeeding, there's an emotional piece that you're not going to change. And so one of the strategies that I learned over time is I would go into the classroom prior to the IEP and observe the student. I would spend time with the student, ask questions about the student. And when I'm in the meeting in the IEP, I would sit and listen, but you know, inside I'm having this reaction and my feet are like twitching because it's like, oh my gosh, but you just listen and listen and listen. And then calmly you can say, validate something that you resonate with, say something about their student and provide a suggestion. We're not gonna change the world in one glimpse. You offer a suggestion, and most of the time after that, they were saying, thank you so much for everything you've done. Well, I haven't done anything. I just listened and I shared something that I thought would be beneficial.
Right on. And that really factors into this third thought about measuring improvement in trust. Any of you, Terrence, maybe we can start with you, or any of you want to drill it deeper on that? All right. Thanks, Kathy. Have a good trip home.
So, you know, that's the Gallup poll. That's my understanding. We have not done a lot of work in terms of measuring that. It's really anecdotal at this point. However, that is a strength that is something that we need to explore, not only for that, but also as we shift in this movement, if you will, about how we connect students to skills and not test scores. And so how are we going to measure that? And having a conversation yesterday with some very knowledgeable folks in terms of co-constructing that together. And my understanding is Gallup has a lot of tools that allow you to do that, but I don't have that experience. Well,
yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, when I see something I get excited about, I want to talk about it. So it really deals with working with teams and making decisions. Prior to becoming a superintendent, I spent about 8 years as a human resources professional. And one of the things that I've learned over the course of time, it's not always about what the person has done wrong or bad. It's about how you treat the person on that way. Once that decision is made, you have to have the courage to make the decision. I hear all the time about, well, we just move the person to this side, or they just go here. We don't play the dance of the lemons in our district. We don't do that. You stay there and you address the issue. And we try to provide as much support as we can. However, when it's time, so yeah, this is being filmed. There were some moves that were made recently that were like, you know, those things that you just don't touch. And when you have those things that you just don't touch, I go, that's something I want to touch. because you have to walk through it. If you don't do it, you're failing students. And so people think in their heads, you just make these decisions because you want to and you do them. No. I go through so much information from the board to cabinet, to extended cabinet, to students, to staff members, to community members. I gather so much intel and information prior to making that decision. The decision isn't something that it's me. It's based upon what is the right thing to do because of the impact that's happening in the organization. And that's something you have to do. And I definitely will say this. If I make a decision like that and I lose my job for it, then that job isn't for me. Then I go somewhere else where someone's going to have some courage and do the right thing to move things forward. I would just say it's not an annual thing. It's not a twice a year. It's every day. And so if something comes up, we have a conversation. Conversation all the time. Good, bad, ugly, whatever, we talk all the time. So people know exactly where they are.
Super rich conversation, as always. Richard, Terrence, Randy, and Kathy Veronese in absentia.